Okay, in this video we're going to talk about interconnected bunker complexes. Now, when I'm bringing this up, I want you to think of back with the tunnel systems videos. I mentioned that the very ground level, that very first level, you should have bunkers, pillboxes, trenches, spider holes, and that stuff set up as the defense of the tunnel system, which would start below that, at least 10 feet below ground level should be your first actual level of your bunker, of your tunnel system. So you got your ground level, which is your fighting level. Now, when I was thinking about this, I remembered reading on a book that dealt with Iwo Jima during World War II. And it talked about basically team-size and squad-sized bunker complexes that were spread out all over the island. And these were a little bit unique. Interconnected bunkers are not new to history. They had been used as long as fortifications have existed. But what made the Japanese ones unique is there was really no entrance into them. There was battle reports from the Marines, which later were confirmed from discussions with prisoners and that stuff, what few were taken. Each Japanese soldier was supposed to dig his own bunker, or a couple Japanese soldiers were supposed to build a single bunker. So they would go through, they would excavate an area for their bunker, climb inside, and then they would close up the entrance behind them, and that would become their firing slit. So there was only that one way to get into the bunker, which was covered by the soldier inside. Now, you also had with them squad and team positions that were interconnected, supporting each other. Think of this as basically being inside a small hill. The enemy's coming from this direction, that's what we anticipate, so we have most of the positions are going to be covering that arc, that 180 degrees this way at least. And then you have one position on the back, watching the back to make sure no one tries sneaking up from that direction. They're interconnected with tunnels that are just tall enough that the person, that Japanese soldier was able to run through at a crouch. And remember, he was shorter than his American counterpart. Each bunker was meant for a machine gun, or at a minimum, the soldier and his rifle. Now, if you think of this as a squad position, you would have two-man positions spread out. If it's a team position, it would just be one single person inside each bunker, and it would be sized appropriately. So if there's only one person inside, it did not need to be as large. Now, if it was a squad-sized position, you could have one person on duty inside each bunker, and the other person's off duty back in the little sleep bunker here and here during his off hours, his 12 hours. But if anything was to occur, then that person that's on rest runs to their designated bunker to assist, and then that person becomes the ammo runner. He goes back getting additional cans of ammo, additional boxes of grenades, additional mines, whatever was available to that little position. And then ideally, no guarantee it would happen, but each of these bunkers here, this little squad bunker or team bunker, should have some type of communications with the other bunkers connected by landline, by telephone wire, which would be buried basically as deep in the ground as you could get, as far down as you can go, to protect that telephone line from mortar and artillery fire. You're probably not going to protect it from bomb fire. You know, a 500-pound drop bomb makes a pretty big damn crater. But if you can make sure that it'd be protected from the highest caliber artillery your enemy's most likely going to use, well, then your bunkers in theory would still be able to talk with each other. This position here would be able to talk to the next one on the other side of the valley, or the next one along the ridge line and stuff. Who would use that field telephone? Well, whoever's coming back from that bunker that has that report. Or you could have the one non-commissioned officer or officer that's in charge would be in there passing out the ammo to the runners as they come in, and would radio in the reports or call in the reports over the phone. So the runner up here, you know, we have an enemy sighting. The gunner's on the weapon, passes the info to his ammunition bearer. The ammunition bearer or assistant gunner, whatever you want to think of him as, runs back, reports to the person in charge of the complex here. He receives the report. If the split needs to take up additional ammo, gives it to him, whatever's needed. That assistant gunner runs back. The person that's back here in charge then calls in the report to higher or to the next bunkers over to let them know. You know, one of those things of, we have a company of American Marines approaching the ridge line. They're about 500 meters out. They have 2 tanks with them, 2 Sherman tanks. And then that Japanese non-commissioned officer would then notify the other bunkers. Now, I have come across references, not as much in the Pacific, but I did come across them in histories from Europe. Where some of these sleep shelters or command bunkers, depending on, you know, what level in the platoon or company it is, if there was an officer in there, it was possible that there could be some type of rotating periscope in there like you would see in a submarine. It wouldn't be as large. It would be scaled down, obviously. But the person back here would be able to observe with that camouflaged periscope, which would be hidden inside brush, or, you know, brush, some tree, sapling would be attached to the periscope. And they would get observation and that stuff, pass the information along as appropriate. Now down here, I have just a general idea of how something like this would have been set up. You got your fighting bunker here, your overhead cover in the front. You had your firing slit of the bunker, cleared area inside the cover here so that the person can shoot through. The tunnel going back to the sleep shelter would be down lower. Like I said, it would not be uncommon for them to be just the height of a soldier that could run through at a crouch. Or, if it was easier, to crawl through. So, and that would lead back to a slightly larger shelter where you would have just enough beds or areas set up in there that half the people assigned to that complex could be sleeping at any given time. Maybe you would have a small table in there that they could clean weapons at, they could eat, whatever needs to be done. Now someone might ask the question, well, what about restrooms? What would they do there? Well, they could potentially use a bucket, or they could potentially have dug out a small cubby off on the side with a fairly good sized pit going down to the floor that they have a cover over. And they use that as their field latrine. So, how would something like this be attached into a tunnel complex? Well, you would have a few of these, not all of them, would have a hidden doorway somewhere in the bunker or inside the tunnels that would lead to the tunnels farther underneath. You would definitely have a hidden entrance into the tunnel system inside the sleeper ammo shelter, which would be a little bit deeper than your fighting bunkers. so that reinforcements can come up into here and then travel wherever's needed. Additional ammo could be brought up, wounded could be taken down to lower levels for treatment inside the field hospital, and so forth. I spent a long time looking for some of the pictures and drawings of these from Iwo Jima because I came across some pretty good ones when I had read on this stuff before, but I cannot find my books that have those pictures in them. So I thought it was in a John Poole book, possibly Phantom Soldier if I remember correctly. I looked through that one and I couldn't find it in there, so maybe it's in one of my actual World War II history books somewhere inside my library that I still have yet to unpack and get shelved yet. So I'm going off of memory on this as best I can and what few references I can find online. Now, what would the bunkers have been made from? Whatever was available. The Japanese did send a considerable amount of concrete to Iwo Jima, but that was not what every bunker was made from. Some of them were just made out of logs and sandbags and whatever they could get a hold of. Whatever was available. And remember, the whole purpose for the Japanese soldier was they were supposed to fight to the death. That's one of the reasons why they did not have an exit. You have an exit, you have that little thought in the back of that soldier's mind that, hey, I can run and live to fight another day. Well, if you cut off that escape route, then they then have no choice but to fight to the death. That's one of the reasons why the Japanese did that. Why their entrance was their firing slit, so they couldn't run away, they couldn't surrender. They had no choice, they had to fight and die. So just a little concept for you there. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, essayons.